Hey, welcome to the Trapital podcast. I'm your host, Dan Runcie. Today, we have a special guest who's a former Major League Baseball player, now turned artist. I'd like to welcome Micah Johnson to the
Thank you.
podcast.
Thanks for
Welcome,
having
man.
me, Dan. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad you could come through. And it's been an exciting time, especially for you. But before we get to everything that's happened in the past few weeks, let's go back a few years because you had a career in Major League Baseball. It was what you had wanted to do your whole life. And
Right.
then you decide to leave that and want to go into art full time. Take me through that thought process. What was that like? How were you feeling at the time?
Yeah, it was more organic than you would think, it wasn't like leading up to it, I said this is my final game and made a big ordeal about it. It was more organic and it wasn't I wouldn't say it's how I envisioned, going out. But at the time, I really wanted to focus on like my mental health and my mental well-being. And I knew it was the right decision in order to make sure I was all right. So that's kind of how it took place. It wasn't like I was like Michael Jordan, this is my last game, and this, like a ceremony. No, none of that.
Nice. Yeah, because I remember I read that there was some meeting that you all had. This is when you're at the Dodgers, and Dave Roberts had asked a bunch of you all, "Hey, like, what are you interested in? What are your hobbies?" And you had mentioned art and painting, and you quickly became known as the guy, at least not just within the team, but also within baseball, as the one that has paintings, and this is what you do.
Yeah, and it's funny because like when that all happened, the first painting was so bad. Um, but a few of those guys came up to me and said like how good it was or how talented I was or something, and I believed them, so I just kept painting. That was literally how I'm here. Like that's it. If everybody in the room was like that's trash, then I wouldn't be doing this. So that like point one is like that shows you how much like um, just like kind words and instilling confidence in somebody can really make a difference. Like even if you don't like something or there's no reason to say something negative. Like there's zero benefit of being negative. Like and then it took a while to establish myself as an artist after that. Like it wasn't like overnight all these guys thought I was like a painter. Like up until recently, this past summer was when they were all like, "Oh, wait, like this is Micah. Like this is the guy that was playing baseball." And my goal was always to be known as an artist and as a creative, and not as like the artist creative baseball player. Like, and I think I finally like shook that thing.
Right, right. No, definitely. What was it like? Because I know you mentioned it took a while to feel like you had established yourself. Like, were there specific things you had done intentionally, or was a lot of that organic as well?
I work, man. I work from the moment I wake up till probably way past the time I probably should go to bed, and it's every day. There's no like aha moment. It's like I really worked on my craft, on like and we'll get into like why I'm painting the way I paint or the stuff I'm trying to say, but I just work. I believe if you do something enough, I don't care if we wanted to like learn to code, if we wanted to learn how to make beats. I don't care if you want to like become like a Nasdaq or stock trader, right? You do it enough, you're going to be good at it. So for the years, like after I retired, I just painted in my garage, and I would get up early in the morning, like 6, 5 in the morning, paint all day, and do it again the next day. And I still do that because I think that is practice, but I enjoy it. Like I enjoy the one thing I enjoy most about all of this and any success is not the success, it's the whole journey to get there. Like seeing yourself get better in this painting or see yourself like making better decisions and things like that. That's what I enjoy.
Yeah, I think that the consistency is key. That goes back to the whole 10,000 hours thing, right? Like you can't really feel like it until you get to that kind of level. And for you, like you said, you've been doing it nonstop. Have you kept track of how many pieces of artwork you've done since when you first started?
No, because I throw a lot away. I throw a lot away. So if you count those, I mean, hundreds or thousands. Because um, I paint really. What works for me is I just paint with raw emotion, right? A lot of times I just use my hands, dumping charcoal, throwing charcoal, and just shaping things. a lot of times it doesn't work out. I'm not a natural born, like, maybe I am, but but like for me to develop those skills and doing that, I'm still developing, right? So when you see something beautiful, that comes from like a lot of mistakes, right? Or a lot of bad decisions that I learned from and don't make again. No problem throwing things away, like at any stage in the painting either. Like if we're like almost done and something's off, I have no problem. A lot in the dumpsters.
Yeah, I hear you on that. It's funny hearing you talk about this makes me think about how I can be to some extent with my own writing as well. People may see the polished product that's out there after I press send, but you don't know how many stories that are still in the drafts, how many stories either just didn't make it because the moment passed and the thought just didn't come
Yeah.
clearly enough at the time. But yeah, it's key. And I'm sure it's tough as well because so much of what you're doing, you're not just trying to comment on something that is of the moment. You're trying to put something out there that can like live over time. Like I think I saw one of the earlier works you had done a few years ago. It was the Ken Griffey Jr. where he's blowing
Yeah.
the bubble gum. And I mean, that's such an iconic photo, but it's you being able to put your own spin on that. And I can imagine that took quite a bit of time to create something like that.
Yeah, and even evolving from that to like really having a style that is recognizable, that was the hardest part, right? Like, was as a creative, you always, this is my thesis, is to be a successful creative, and I mean like successful monetarily or like your legacy, you have to have a style that everybody recognizes instantly, right? And you can't deviate from that because then they don't know what that is, right? That's what they're accustomed to. So being creative, you think you can do all these crazy things, you can't. Like you're almost even more constricted the more successful you become. So, like for me, when I was doing works like that, I was just like didn't feel well because I was trying to come up with a style, right? And eventually, like, I found it, and it was just like a light bulb went off, and um, it's fun. It's crazy because sometimes I have an exhibit in Los Angeles right now, and during that time I was working on it, I did like a really kind of like hyper realistic oil painting, which my style is like raw charcoal, and I was like, "Yo, this is amazing." And texted the gallery, and they're like, "I don't know, like this doesn't work really well." And I was like, "Yeah, I know, huh?" Like, so you got to kind of stay in your lane, for at least a while.
Right. Yeah. It seems like there's a few stages, especially in being a creative. It's like when you don't have your own style at first, you often end up emulating what you see
Hmm.
from other folks. You
Hmm.
do that, you see how much you like. And I think once you see what resonates based on what you feel comfortable with, then it really starts to come into your own. And to your point, it's like you want to get to that point. And in some ways, I think you're there. You want to now, you want to get to that point though, in general, where it's like someone looks at this and they're like, oh, Micah Johnson did this.
Yeah,
That's that
yeah,
Micah Johnson style.
yeah, yeah. And to your point too, like when you are creating early on, you are emulating people, and you're looking at Instagram and all that, right? And I think it's important in anybody's progress or process, whether you're a writer or a painter or learning anything. Social media is a tool to use, but then it comes to a point where you got to say, okay, like if I keep looking at this social media and what other people are doing, I'm never going to figure out what I'm good at, right, or what my style is. So I'm at the point now where like I don't do like social media, like I don't enjoy it because you can get stuck in that like creative block because you're seeing what everybody else is doing, and then subconsciously, I should be doing this, or like I like this, and you just get away from yourself, really.
Right. So when you were looking at social media, were there artists or people that you were following specifically that you were trying to emulate in the early days?
Yeah, yeah. There was it's funny because it was such a wide spectrum. Like when I first started, it was like acrylic, like pop art work and like really fine lines. So I have works like that, and it was just like that's not me. I'm like pretty like my mind's all over the place, like I'm wild, like that's not my style. And then I looked at like when I started evolving into like charcoal and stuff, right? So I'm looking at like Nelson McConnell, right, who was one of the most renowned artists in the world, in my opinion, and like elite, like whatever he's doing is elite, like the Michael Jordan of art. And then you start doing things like that, and it's like, oh, okay, that's not my style either, right? But I think all that was a process to like teach me how to where I'm at. Like I took the colors that I saw in pop art. I take that kind of like looseness that Nelson has, right? And I tried to like just make it my own and shape it. I'm still doing that, and I don't think you'll ever stop. You'll never if you you'll never be there, you know. But those two in particular really kind of like steered me, and it was ironic too because Nelson is, working with children in South Africa too, and my point of emphasis is children. Going back to when my nephew asked if astronauts could be black, that's the origin of me wanting to paint children, painting him as an astronaut. So they're two amazing, like the pop art with Shelby and Sandy, and you have Nelson Nakamo, two opposing works, right? Two opposing styles, but it's like you kind of see that influence in me a little bit.
Mm. Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. And from a creative perspective, I know one of the other common things we're always hearing people talk about as well is who are your customers? How are you able to like build that following, build that base? And I'm sure it's a little different for you in creating fine art. What is that like though?
So when I was creating and I was telling you I was lost and like trying to paint all these things, right? I was focusing on the customer and the collector and like what they might want or what might sell or things like that, and I was never gaining any real traction, right? Like I didn't feel good about it, and I think people can sense like if you're inauthentic. Um, and so I just when I said I painted my nephew as an astronaut, like I just literally in my garage started painting him with the astronaut helmet on, and I saw what that did to his confidence, and I saw what that the way he responded. So that's just I felt that felt right to me. Like it wasn't like anything. I wasn't selling these or anything like that. It just felt right to me. So what I realized was, when people started buying him and then galleries were interested in my work, right? I realized that, being authentic to yourself, like, is what people are going to buy. If there's a story behind it, if you can, clearly articulate your messaging behind what you're doing, then people are going to buy it, regardless of like how hyper realistic something is or how good something is. I think people are buying more so the person in the story than they are, maybe technique or whatever that is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's the feeling, especially with creative work, that's what sets the tone and helps you stand out. Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So with what you've done, you are clearly starting to hit a stride with what you're doing with charcoal, what you're doing with acrylic. And then NFTs come about and you enter that space. When did you first see the potential there to think, okay, I have what I'm doing here. Maybe there's a way to transfer it to this new wave that's happening?
It's actually funny because I don't see a way to transfer my art to NFTs. Like we're talking about charcoal, we're talking about texture, we're talking about like raw emotion and fingerprint. My work doesn't translate. I want my work on your wall. I want you to see it. I want you to like feel something, with this big painting at large scale on your wall. My work doesn't translate. And when I first got into space about a year ago, I was like doing like iPad stuff and things like that. And I did maybe like 3 or 4 works like that, right? Maybe. And just didn't do anything after that because I was like, I wanted to focus on my art career. This doesn't feel authentic to me. So took a break and, I always wanted to develop a character, Aku, derived from my nephew's, question and his passion and whatever. And so I said, NFTs is a good way to do this. So developed the character over, months. And what I really wanted to do with Aku was bring it in the terms of what Disney did, right? Treat it as almost like as a company. Like Aku is a company that we brought to the blockchain, right? So you have creatives, you have um, animator, you have all these components, right? That's how I view that's how I bring my creativeness to the blockchain versus I'm gonna do a painting or things like that.
Hmm. Yeah, that IP, as we were referring to, like having Aku be a piece of your intellectual property is key because that goes back to the storytelling and that leverages the potential in this because as you've seen with Disney, these characters can live everywhere, whether it's you go to Magic Kingdom or wherever you see these characters, you turn on Disney Plus, you see these characters, you go to AMC, you see these characters. And
Exactly.
that's really what you're kind of going for. And it's cool. I feel like there's a huge potential there, and you've already been tapping into that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what's interesting now, and I'm always trying to do something that can show somebody that what's possible and then have them do something better. It's all about building and building and building for the next generation and next people. And you're exactly right. What I did was I have IP. I have a character, and I think it's a character that needs to be seen. And obviously after the first release and the community that was involved all across the world, people need to feel that kind of connection with them, right? And so that IP, I have big plans. Like I'm thinking the exact same way, right? How can we get him on these shows? How can we get Aku into movies? How we can get Aku into every kid's um, house, right? Or a kid's room. Like kids sit there and watch the Wiggles all day. Why can't they watch Aku, this kid who just wants to be a black astronaut, but it feels like he can't, right? I think everybody can resonate with that story, like feeling like there's limitations to your dreams, like regardless of your skin color, right? So what we did was I said, okay, we're going to bring this to the blockchain first to prove market fit, right? That's what NFTs and the blockchain really do. There's a collector base there. You can prove, you can make money, generate revenue there before going to these productions and these studios, right? And trying to sell them on this IP with this elaborate story and all that. We can just try to establish his character first, establish his IP first, then take that to them and say, look, like this is how many people are engaged with this. This is how many people are collecting this. This is the revenue we generated off of 45-second, 60-second, really artistically done clip. Like this is what we're bringing you. And that's what I think, that's where I'm fascinated with NFTs is, or the whole marketplace in general, is that potential.
Right. And you definitely made a statement with that. As you mentioned, within the first 45 or 60 seconds, you sold $1 million worth. And then within the total 28 hours that you had it on sale, over $2 million. How did that feel? Were you expecting that?
No, no, no. I don't ever think about money, man. I never have monetary goals. I never, even with my exhibit in LA, no idea what sold, what hasn't sold, and no idea what the prices are for my paintings. Never, I don't know at all. Because as soon as you start thinking about money and if you start focusing on that, that becomes like the objective. I mean, my objective is to reach kids and get and whoever, parents, adults, it doesn't matter, reach people. What that monetary value does that you just said, it it gets attention from people, right? It's a new space. What is it? Oh, you're making millions of dollars. It's attention grabbing, which is great. You need that. But I'm more focused on the community that it's built, right? Like you had rappers talking about Aku. You had celebrities talking about Aku. You had athletes talking about Aku. You had crypto people, everyday people. You had people that, put together just $1,000 to get an Aku. Like, you had a community of people all around the world come together for one day on one chapter. We had like thousands of people in a clubhouse room on a Sunday just having fun. And it was just, that's what really got me excited. Like, money aside, that's what really, really got me excited to see the potential here.
Yeah. Yeah, that was dope. You got some heavy hitters there. And like I told you, I think right before we started recording, like I had seen so many people that I'd follow that were like posting it, resharing it. And I was like, oh, they got in too. Like it was really special. It was really special to see. And yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that base and that collective that was able to help push this forward because you alluded to it earlier. I know one of our mutual friends, Eric Ann, was part of this. She's definitely leading a lot of the efforts in this space. What was that like in terms of being able to use that as a platform to help spread the word and the awareness?
Yeah, I mean, what we saw and how the Aku became this thing where everybody across borders was collecting was started with a few of the leaders in the Black crypto space. And I mean few, it started with, 24 or 36 hours before we launched on Sunday. They started a group chat and said, well, we this is our opportunity to put a Black character and a Black artist at the front of a movement, which is NFTs, from Jump Street, right? This is our chance to take over, not take over, but lead the way in this new market, right? That obviously is generating a bunch of revenue. So they got together and just leveraged their network and just reached out to people and instantly, like, what do we need to do? Okay, cool. What do we need to do? Okay, cool. Because they resonate with the story and it was authentic, and what that showed me, and I hope it showed a lot of people that understood what really happened was, I mean, black people generate the revenue. Like when there's a massive black people, we mob, man. Like that was incredible, right? And I think that story needs to be told, and like you're going to see as the chapters evolve what really occurs here, and like I don't know how to explain it, man. It's like you got to like it put the people on notice in the space, like okay, we got to focus on these. They're driving. They drove $2 million in sales, 36 hours out from like three people in a group chat, right? Like that's powerful, man.
Yeah.
That's the alpha of it all.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It really is. I mean, I think that there's a few things happening. There just had been so many examples of Black folks being the key drivers of culture, whether it is on these new social media platforms. We're just talking about Clubhouse earlier. We
Come
were
on, man.
the early adopters and the ones that pushed that to the billionaire stat or the $1 billion valuation that it has now. And you see this happen time and time again. So the fact that there was this new wave and this new trend happening, and we already saw what the potential was, people being able to support and see the potential and the vision of what you were doing, but also the character Aku and the potential and the vision of what's there. That's what gets people bought in too. So one, it's tying into what you're doing, but it's also, hey, there's this broader opportunity. We know we have the collective power. And yeah, I mean, the Rolodex and the group circles are very close. It kind of reminds me of there was this one episode of Blackish from a few years ago where it was Anthony Anderson's character was talking with another Black, I think it was Dion, and the two of them were talking, and they were just talking about how like, oh, like naming all these Black celebrities, and I was like, oh, do you know so and so? And
Yeah,
then they're
yeah,
like, oh yeah, I met so and so with this, and they couldn't name someone that either of them didn't have a connection to, and it just speaks to the fact that the circles aren't like
no,
you're not a degree, or you're not that many degrees of separation away from each other, and if you can coalesce the base, some dope shit can happen. And I'm really glad that you were one of the ones. I mean, because not even just as a benefactor, because it speaks to the work and the content and what you were able to help put out with this, and this is just the beginning.
yeah, but I think obviously I was the artist there and I was the character there. I brought the IP right and all that. But what that proved out was what if we did this for one character in 36 hours? What do you think we could do with other artists, other platforms, other companies, other sectors? Like, what if we did that in 36 hours? What do you think we can do for all together on this?
Hmm.
And to your point, yeah, it's like, oh, let's call so and so, and it's like, yeah, we know them, we know them, we know them. Work like the group that is together on this is connected everywhere, like, and that's what we're all really excited about internally is the other potentials out there. From a business perspective, of the needles that we can move in the various sectors, like moving together, and it's powerful. And I think crypto's so new that it's like this is an opportunity in here in crypto. Like this is a clear opportunity.
I think about the character Aku. So of course it is a fictional character, but it's clearly based on like real life. But I also think about how I've seen some of these virtual influencers having
Hmm.
their space too, like what Brud has done with Lil Michaela, and I
Hmm.
forget some of the other characters they got, but they are having these virtual concerts. They are having these types of meetings and meetups, and their whole pitch is that Michaela is as real as Rihanna is, if see her that way. And I think to a lot of extent, what the potential is for something like Aku is true as well, because there's so many places where this character as IP can live and can continue to push, and people can follow along that type of journey. So it's like intersecting that world too, which is still really nascent.
Exactly right. Like what it proved out, really, what it proved out from a business perspective on a couple Sundays ago was we released IP in the most like weird fashion in NFTs, right? what is an NFT? Didn't matter to people. Like, it did not matter. Like, people messaging me like, this is the first NFT I bought. So I think together what we can do is, okay, if that worked on NFTs, what could this do with figurines? What could this do with uh, television shows? What could it do with, things like that? And me just being the person I am, I just think I've always had, these ambitions, but it's like, this isn't just about a character. This is about like a literally a opportunity to have an enterprise like of other characters. Like for me, representation is the most important thing in a child. Like for me, like growing up, I was a big baseball fan, obviously. They had a player on the Cubs, big Cubs fan, Brian McRae, right? Not the most well-known player ever by any means. I was like, 6, 7, 5, whatever it was, knew exactly who he was. Like that was my guy, right? And this astronaut, like that gives him that representation, right? Obviously, there's other black astronauts, but the astronaut helmet isn't the focus. Like it's not about being an astronaut. It's about this unattainable thing that exists. Playing baseball seems like an unattainable thing. I did it, and I'm 6 foot, 180 pounds from nowhere, right? No abilities athletically, like the worst basketball, football, soccer player ever, right? And I did it. Astronaut seems like an unattainable thing. Others have done it, so just showing them that like these kids that gives them hope, especially in a time with social media when it's all like they're on social media at a young age and the kids are saying negative things about them and like just blowing their confidence. Like yeah, I think it's relevant and it's important.
Yeah, it really is. And when I think about the visual aspect and just the ability for the idea to continue to spread, um, I'm curious if the people who have owned it or even you yourself, like, are there digital frames or anywhere or anything else up? Because I know you had mentioned earlier, like, your core, you want your stuff to be out there, you want your stuff to be seen. Do you have frames and stuff like that as part of
Yeah,
the?
yeah. I'm trying to figure out that actually now is because I didn't expect the response on chapter one, right? Did not expect that by any means. But a lot of people were asking about the frames and things like that. So we're trying to figure out how to ensure they have frames, because like the creative team behind it is like putting out incredible things. Like if you had it on your wall, you'd be like, "Yo, this is wild,"
Right, right.
Like it has to be on there. Like so, that's definitely something that we're looking into. I think it's so new in the space too. Having a frame that links to an NFT or NFT wallet and things like that is still you know, kind of confusing.
Mm. So I guess, like, from the outside looking in a bit, because you of course are working to at one aspect of the NFT world, but there's all these other things happening, whether it's NBA Top Shop or what artists are starting to do, where they're starting to release music or have things. Like, I even saw Hannibal Buress has a few of his old comedy
Hmm.
sketches that he's putting out there. What is your thought on some of the other ways that you're seeing creatives or companies putting out NFTs?
Look, I think the future of NFTs is not going to be in the thing that it is, the forward facing thing that it is. I think the future of it is going to be in the accessibility, and the maybe it's gated content or content creation ownership and provability. I think that is the future, and I think you like music is music's getting there, right? Music. I don't envision a world anymore where music won't be tied to some kind of NFT in some way, shape, or form. Like it's designed for music, and I also think it's designed for content creators, right? Like if you think about it, content creators for so long have been posting stuff on Instagram and YouTube, trying to get these followings to get ad revenue that is a very, 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 very 0.00 percentage of what the actual company is making, right? So NFTs fix that. Like, so I think that is the future that you're going to see here. Right now, everybody's just getting in, trying to figure it out, right? Which is part of the process. You know, um, you might not like some of the stuff they're putting out or things like that, or people might think it's like weird looking, but it's all part of the process, figuring it out. Then, as everybody starts figuring it out, you're going to see a bunch of innovation,
Mhm.
incredible amount of innovation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, because I think in your space and in a few other creative spaces, the assets that you were creating still held tremendous value in the real
Hmm.
world, right? And these are things that could appreciate in value, and the market recognized that. For musicians, it was the exact opposite, right? Where we saw this decrease over time, and as technology made it more abundant, it became less valuable in terms of just, how much you're getting paid per stream.
Hmm.
So when I'm seeing artists that are doing more creative things, putting it out there, it leverages what's there, but it also flips the dynamic back to what it was back in the days when they were selling CDs and they were taking home $5 for every $20
Yeah.
sale of the CD, right? Or to some extent, I mean, I think that the NBA trading cards probably fall a little bit closer to the artwork piece where, if you had the valuable Jordan rookie card, it
Yeah.
could appreciate in value over time and stuff like that. So yeah, so I feel like I agree with you. I think the biggest value add opportunity seems to be for the creatives that were creating art that was marginalized in terms of its
Yeah.
value thanks to technology in the past
Yeah.
decades or so.
And one sector, what I'm building out is um, sports, right? And athletes in general, not necessarily sports. Like what NBA Top Shot is doing and what they're going to be doing is massive. Like they're elite, right? But there's another side of it, right? They came in at the very top level. They had, and it's very difficult to come in at that top level, like the Fanatics, where they're getting licensing. It's expensive. They came in at the top level, and what they're doing and what they're going to build in the future is always going to be there. I don't think that's a bubble. Like, don't let these people fool you and try to get you to sell your cards. That's not a bubble. Like Roham, what they built is serious. But there's another aspect that I'm interested in as a former athlete who wasn't a superstar, but had a small window to leverage what I could do off the field to make money by leveraging my likeness. And that's what I'm building out now is a platform that allows individual athletes to come out and tell their story, share their content, help them create NFTs if they don't have, some creative direction, and let them monetize their likeness. You know, that's kind of where, I'm at and kind of where I see the need just from my experience.
Mm. That's interesting, and I
Yeah.
do, and I think that honestly, in some ways, aligns up with the music aspect to some extent. If I'm just kind of connecting the dots, because if you are an athlete, either a current or a former professional athlete, you have your story. There are people that would value to hear that story, but right now, at least most of the people would go the traditional route where it's like, let me try to get the interview with
Bingo.
X
Bingo.
person, and they're the ones that have the IP from that. They're the ones that own
Bingo.
everything from that. So if you could own that, and I think we see some of this extent, some of this shifting where it's like, okay, you see LeBron has Uninterrupted
Yep.
and the other company that up Spring Hill and a few
Oh,
of the
there's
others.
tons of those. There's tons of
Yeah.
those, and maybe not on LeBron's level, but just from conversations, there's tons of those. Like these guys are more so than ever. Athletes are thinking off the field. Like I'm answering texts all the time from teammates, athletes, like, "What's Dapper Labs? What is this? What is
Mm,
this company? What is this? NFT do? What does this tech do?" Right? More so than ever, they're empowered to make money, like off the field, and it's great to see. It's just that the content distribution hasn't really caught up yet, right? Which was an area I'd said, okay, this is a hasn't caught up yet. Obviously, I've been in NFT space a while. This is what we need,
mhm,
and brought on like the one of the best content partners in Shadow Lion, co-founded by Tom Brady. Gilad brought said, okay, let's go get content. Like let's take your abilities to get content. Let's take my abilities to understand the need from an athlete perspective, but also what we can do with that content, and let's help these guys.
mhm.
Let's build this and help them monetize their story.
No,
Tell
that's
it how they
great.
want to too. Yeah.
That's great. I like that. And I mean, it does seem like, I know you mentioned that first and foremost, the art piece of this is what you enjoy most, is what you want to do. But naturally, there are more business or
Hmm.
opportunities that you do want to be able to expand to. And especially, I'm sure you probably got more inquiries after Aku and that NFT blew up. what do your days look like now? Because I'm sure you probably still want to spend as much as your day creating and thinking about what the evolution of your art will be, but you also are a creative entrepreneur and there are other administrative tasks that I'm sure you want to do.
Yeah, um, I'm building, man. It's right now it's build mode, and that's it. There's no my art blew up last summer, and I dedicated my time to that. Like I was painting all day, getting better, 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 better. Um, and I said I was gonna take a break. Well, Aku happened, Edge happened, the platform I'm building. Other opportunities presented itself, right? So right now, my days are 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. because people out on the West Coast just they still awake at 8 p.m. So they're all day right now because this is how I think of it. You have sprints, then you have breaks, like like the little Indian runs you used to do back in like gym class where you have to like the leader have to sprint up, then you would chill for a minute. Right now I'm in a sprint, and then hopefully I could take a break. But right now, there's a lot of chances to build and bring people along with you and do something that could, benefit a lot of people and benefit my family. So I don't. Each day I wake up and I don't think anything of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like if you are someone that is a creative in this space, there are going to be moments where, okay, like there's a stride to hit right now. And in order
Hmm.
to set things up for the future, whether that's decades, generations, you got to kind of take those opportunities and ride them and maximize them when the window of opportunity is there.
Yeah, yeah, and even with Aku, like that's moving a lot faster than I expected it to move. Right? Obviously, I had every vision in place, but it's moving a lot faster than I expected. And getting that whole entity in place with people that actually know what they're talking about, what they know how to push product, how they know how to get it on the big screen and different things like that, which I believe is a great what great businesses do and great like um, founders do is they say, okay, I'm not good at this, but I need to get this person and this person and this person. And personally, I rather build something amazing and retain less equity than have a bunch of equity of something that's just average. You know.
Mm. It's interesting because I feel like I wonder if other artists would feel that same type of way. And it's in some ways it's a bit refreshing to hear the balance because I feel like there's so many creatives that, they'd rather own the bigger slice of the smaller pie and have more control as
Which is
opposed to
fine, which is
yeah.
completely fine, like, because they're artists, like, I would love, like, if my brain worked, I could just paint and think, but my brain's everywhere, man. Just wired where I just go and go and go and drink coffee all day. I admire that, honestly, that people just paint and they can do something. Like, a perfect example would be, like, those pop artists I was telling you about, right? Their style has never changed. Like they know exactly what they're doing, and everything they do is the exact same quality, same look. You know exactly whose work it is, and they're incredibly successful, worldwide renowned, right? I admire those people because I'm like, that's really impressive. Um, but for me, I look at it more as from the business perspective. Art business. NFT is just a perfect timing, man. I feel like I was born in the right time where I can infuse both of those together somehow.
Yeah, really is, man. It's dope.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward 5 years. What does the Aku universe look like? What are the other ways that he is being involved? What are the other ways that he is being seen and immersed with the world?
In 5 years, I mean, I've be very disappointed if Aku's not a motion picture, but also very disappointed if there's not a venture arm from Aku Inc. that can invest in companies. And this is my thesis behind that: is I want to invest in companies that my grandparents, who were born in like the deepest South ever, like middle of nowhere, would be like, there's no chance you ever be on the cap table for that company. And that's my thesis behind that venture arm of Aku Inc. And then I want to build Aku Inc. to where it's not um, a character, but it's an enterprise of characters, of programs, of platforms. You know, um, led by a black founder, led by black characters. I don't think that is far fetched to think. That's my complete vision, to be honest with you. Like, sure, like show would be great and all that, but I think having more characters and having encouraging other black creators, black animators to come out with their own shows and have them on the Aku network. Like that's my big plan.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
I think you're onto something special, man. It's gonna be exciting
yeah,
to watch. So
yeah. Definitely, it's fun, man. If I fail, I fail. I just keep it moving, man. But I work and I don't think about failing.
yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely not.
No,
So before we let you go and wrap up, is there anything else that you want to plug or let the Trapital audience know about?
this is the most important thing I think for the NFT space, and as a black creator, black um, founder, the space is full of black creatives, right? Of great ones. Not enough, but trust me, there's the same rules apply. Not in an intention that we deserve, but we're going to change that. But what's really going to make that needle move and let us really lead the entire, like, not lead the space and make sure we have a major part in it, is having black collectors in the space. So there's plenty of black collectors buying physical work, and there's plenty of black collectors collecting in the physical assets. What's going to really move the needle is once they come and start collecting. You know what I mean? And it was really cool because Pusha T collected Aku's NFT, right? And it was like that really riled a lot of people up. Like, this is really cool, right? Imagine if the more collectors come into space, like, can have a really good major impact on the trajectory of black art in this field which is way around forever.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah,
Well, I'm sure the folks listening were definitely going to tap in because I know a
come
lot
on.
of people have been like, hey, how can I get more involved in the space? What can I learn? And honestly, for whether it's the black folks or even people that are just generally working in music, so many people are trying to figure this space out. And that was one of the reasons it was great to have you
Hit
on.
me. My DMs are open for a reason. Like, hit me. Like I want to bring on and onboard as many people as possible. Like,
That's great. That's
yeah.
great. And what are your handles just so people listening can find you?
Micah_Johnson 3 across the board. That's where it's at. Instagram, Twitter, Micah_Johnson 3.
Good stuff. Micah, it was a pleasure, man.
Man, great, man. I really enjoyed it, man. I really appreciate it.